Good morning. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. Good morning. I'm Deanna. I'm a minute late. I couldn't find my own link in our group, our Facebook group, Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club. I guess some of you found it before me. I am so challenged with everything relating to computer stuff, but I'm very happy to see you. I was afraid I was going to open up and there was nobody here because I couldn't find the link myself. Ding dong. Good morning. Good to see you. What a beautiful, cool morning it is for us here in Connecticut. Cool. The season is definitely taking its turn toward the cooler. Linda, good to see you. The sun is shining. Oh, to all you merrymakers. That is so nice. April, good to see you. Mom, good to see you. Kira, good to see you. All my buddies are here. Beverly and Cindy, happy morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Lisa, good to see you. Doreen in lovely Breeze in upstate New York. That is great. And good to see you. I know I'm going to see some of you tonight too for Frida. Kirsten, good to see you. Linda, good to see you. I think I said that I'd love to say it twice, so why not? Scrolling through the comments. Claire, hi from Attleboro, Massachusetts. I know Attleboro. Great to see you. Tara, good morning. How are things up in Canada this morning? Is it holding the sort of pleasant weather now that the biblical rain has stopped? Joy, good morning. Good to see you. I was just online with your sister a little while ago. She seems lovely too, of course. Crystal, great to see you. Dave, there you are. Good to see you. You perked the coffee. You're ready to go. Malia, great to see you in North Carolina. And Gayla is on in Missouri. Jennifer, hello, all those sunflowers. I love all the little symbols. It really tells me how things are where you are. It is nice. It's nice. You know, my vision is so impaired. When I see sunflowers and suns and happy emoji faces, I'm thinking things are probably okay, right? Good to know. Those rugs, your shirt, those earrings. Thank you. I was trying to Frida it up a little bit today. And then I started to have this feeling of like, don't overdo it. Which sometimes is hard to put the brakes on. But, you know, the Frida class is coming up tonight, so I tried to put on a bright top, and I wore some fairly big earrings that are not too heavy, and I had a giant necklace on too. Kind of wish I stuck with it, but next time I'll go full blast. Beautiful, crisp day in Canada. That's great. Getting her hooked on hooking. I hope she loves it. I hope she loves it, Joy. What a great day. And yeah, it is super colorful. And I've even got this over my shoulder, mostly to remind me that I've got to get this stuff ready for the class on Saturday in Madison, Connecticut. I'm teaching the Sugar Skull, so there's a bunch of people coming for that. Gidget, good morning. Good to see you. Cynthia, good morning. In Colorado for a few weeks. The aspens are beautiful. Oh, I can picture that. That is a nice picture, too. I guess our equivalent of aspens in the East is birch, right? Because they're both like white trees that do a lot in the fall. That's probably such a stupid remark, isn't it? But it seems like they must be akin to each other, or at least they have that one thing in common, those two things in common. Well, I am so excited for the Frida class tonight. I really am. I had such, not misgivings, but I was so careful about how I approached this class, the Designing Like Frida, because the content is so mixed, you know. And at first I thought, let's stick with fruit. And then when I got more into it, I thought, well, that's a real disservice to her and her storytelling and her message, many messages. So I thought, all right, let's like put our toes into some of the stuff that's a bit heavier and deeper and more symbolic, right? Her symbolist type painting. And I've gone in that direction, and I've managed to, I just finished, right? That's why I was a little bit late. I just finished at home putting together the documents for tonight, and there's a bunch of people on tonight. So for all intents and purposes, there was only one sign up, and it was Barbara for Sunday. So I pulled the plug on the Sunday class, but since then I've heard from a couple people that tonight they're hitting a snag. So what I think I will do is write to some of the people who would rather not do tonight but don't want to miss the class about a date next week, because I hate to put back on the Sunday class because I'm teaching in person in a different part of Connecticut Sunday than racing here to do the Frida class at night. I would rather choose a day that is a bit sane, that you know, that everybody who's kind of misplaced from tonight's class could do. So I'm on that this afternoon. I will create a second date, though. I definitely will. And it might end up being Sunday, but we'll figure that out together. I want everybody who wants to do the class to take the class, because it is honestly the best class I think that I've done so far, tooting my own horn. And I know I say that every time, but this one, for someone who was such a slow starter with this subject, I got so interested in it and interested in her. And I came to a lot of sort of resolutions in my head about why she worked the way that she did and the style that she did and used the kinds of motifs that she did that were a bit hard and edgy. I've totally been able to, through reading and synthesizing all this material, come to terms with a lot of that stuff. And it's still, some of it, so much of her content is like a bit painful to look at. And those are things that I'm not going to put in tonight. I thought I might, and I'm not, because I just feel like not every image is for every person at that moment. And ones that can bring up really strong negative feelings are not ones that I want to put in front of you without, your permission and your knowledge in advance. So the really rough ones, and if you know Frida, you know the kind of paintings I'm talking about, I'm not going to do those. I'm going to stay right in the middle in a good sweet spot where we can get a lot out of these images, and I have a ton of games for us to do so that you end up composing things in the style of Frida. The question on how copyright free she is a hard one to answer. I'm going to go into more detail during the class, but for those of you who aren't taking the class and wonder, I'm getting into Frida now, we've been talking about her a lot, can I hook one of her pictures immediately the way that it is, right? And the answer is hard, because when she died, the copyright in Mexico was that a person would be dead for 25 years before their work was copyright free, and she fell into that category by 2 years. But 2 years after her death, the law changed to 100 years. So she was still quite safe, right? And her copyright was completely free. So since that time, unfortunately, in a nutshell, because this is a really long story, in that time, her family, like great nieces and great nieces and in-law nieces and all manner of connection to the family, have had a sort of stake in the estate. But it remained copyright free because of the law being quite solid and quite clear. However, recently a businessman in Mexico sort of confronted the current heir, who's I believe a great or a great niece, and talked her into making a deal about the ownership of the Frida Kahlo stuff, right? So at that point, copyright became a bit more blurry. This is still a long story, I'm sorry. But what happened was they were able to copyright the name Frida Kahlo and anything that was painted with the name Frida Kahlo on it, but not the images, right? Those were still protected by the original law at the time of her death. And the problem is that this company, right, that they created, the businessman with the family member, many generations out, right, they created a corporation that has been legally going after people, for example, on Etsy, who their sort of bread and butter is Frida images on purses and handmade stuff and rugs and clothing and shoes. And it's become very problematic because it's a lot. It's a lot of cases like this that are, everybody's getting very litigious and bringing everybody else to court over this, because the law never changed. But the fact of this corporation popping up created a lot of confusion and made, honestly, a lot of false claims about what they owned. So it's a very blurry area, but the law seems to be, at the end of the day, to make a long story short, too late, that she is copyright free, but anything showing her name is not. The name is not copyright free, but the images are. That is my understanding of a lot of reading I've done on how copyright free is she. That the general answer is there are current cases in court, so it's hard to give a complete nutshell, final answer. But is this your final answer? It's hard to say because there are lots of current cases raging. But the law has thus far held the 1950s era law, I think it was 1952, that it was a 25-year gap and then it is copyright-free public domain. That seems to be holding case after case after case. There hasn't been any wavering on that. So that is what it appears to be. But again, this is something that is currently under debate, deliberation, and consideration. So it's a tough one. As far as hooking something of Frida's, knowing what I've know and read in great detail about copyright and Frida, I would feel very comfortable hooking something of hers. I would not hook her name on it, but I would feel very comfortable. Selling it is what I'm talking about. If you're hooking it for your living room wall, it's not even a conversation. Go ahead and hook it, right? I'm going to say it. But if you're hooking it for commercial purposes, there is the chance that the Frida Corporation will come after you and bring you to court. But so far, none of those cases have been successful because the law holds. So that is that. Relda, good to see you. Susie, good to see you. Donna, good to see you. Catherine, good to see you. So I am super excited about this class, and it brought me into all sorts of areas of Frida knowledge and trivia that I had not entered before. I had entered into a lot, but this brought me to new places, which is what good research does, isn't it? And I wanted to bring you to new places because I'm going on the assumption that just the assumption that everybody in this class knows something about Frida. And I hope you don't, right? Because it makes the class more fun. But I'm assuming that you do. And so I want to start in different places with more unusual works and talking about different aspects of her life. And one of the aspects of her life that I touched on yesterday, it crossed with my life today too, which was odd. I found this, remember how I was saying that Frida really enhanced the things that made her different. For example, the facial hair, she really enhanced a mustache and the thing that we call the unibrow. It wasn't nearly as pronounced as it looks in her paintings and in photographs of her because she grew it with the special like hair grow product from France, and she enhanced her facial hair with mascara. And it was almost like, I have to say, just thinking about the way she worked and the way she was and the art she produced, it almost is like, and this is my opinion completely and probably not right at all, but it's almost like she offered up for public consumption some of her flaws and terrible stories and said, here they are, look at this unibrow, I'm gonna pencil it in, I'm gonna mascara it in, look at this bad stuff because I don't want you to see the other bad stuff. And that's one of the painful parts about talking about her is her terrible accident that we'll talk about tonight, lots of terrible things and the chronic pain throughout her life, lots of dark, violent, heavy, scary stories. Those are the things that she often, the worst ones, she doesn't offer up to us in painting, like the terrible bus trolley accident. She never paints that. There are some things to her that are so dark and painful and ugly that she won't share them. And instead, she shares other things, like, look at this. This is wrong and ugly. Let me enhance this, and I'm going to give this to you instead of that. It's just the impression I get going through her work, looking at what she will give and what she won't give. It's like she's balancing things out in a strange way. But she had a love of makeup, not just enhancing facial hair, but she loved her makeup. She loved Revlon. And of course, this is the era of like Max Factor, right? A real competitor to Revlon, but also Elizabeth Arden, right? And who's the other great one from that era? War Paint, that great book. Elizabeth Arden and Helena Rubinstein, right? All kinds of high-end makeup. But she always went for Revlon, and she had her special colors. And I found this today, one of these very old lipsticks in my makeup thing. Jay actually found it, I'm ashamed to say, at Goodwill. And I cleaned it off a little bit because I know you shouldn't put things that you find at Goodwill on your face, but I cleaned it off a bit. And I couldn't resist putting it on my face because this seems to me to be, if not Revlon, that sort of era, mid-century era of makeup. And it's super dark. You know, I don't normally wear these colors, but it seemed very Frida to me today. And I just had to do it. And it's quite old, and I don't know how old. It's called Dahlia, and there's no other information. New York and London, Dahlia, made in the USA. But it feels fairly weird and tingly. There might be something wrong, and I might have to wipe it off in a 3-alarm fire emergency later if it starts to sting. But at this moment, it just reminded me of her and her love of makeup. And one of the other things that came up, that's not something I'm covering tonight, makeup and all that stuff, so I can say it now. One of the other things that came up that I'm not covering tonight was after her great accident and her life changed so much, you know, she was on a course to be a doctor, and she ended up being bedridden for huge lengths of time, a huge part of her life. And as a result, her father, who's a photographer, set up an easel and set her up to be creative and paint and draw and, do artwork. And that's the course she took as a result of this horrible accident and being, stuck in her bed for huge, prolonged, protracted months, years of her life. So that was a real turn, right? That's one of those things in life that life turns you. It's not your choice. No more doctor. Now she's looking at art. and she's practicing art. And around that time, she became very interested in becoming a medical illustrator, right, for books. Now, this is interesting because when you think about that fact that she started by illustrating in great detail organs, in body parts, internal organs, injuries, this really makes sense when you layer that on her work. If you're familiar with her work, there are often organs floating in space outside of bodies, attached by ribbons that maybe signify either attachment or blood or ownership or making a physical connection like a collage. She also was a great fan of the collage artist Joseph Cornwall, which I won't be covering in class tonight either. These are all things I'm not covering. I'm not doubling down. We have a full class. But, these are all interesting aspects to her personality. And when I thought about, they could be made by Coty. I don't know what this container is. And it doesn't say, it just says made in the USA. It's really tingling. It's very waxy. So I don't know, Mom. They're not melting now, but let's see what happens. See what happens next. But thinking about her like being on a course to first be a doctor and then be a medical illustrator, it really connected me to this book that I meant to talk to you about, and I was going to bring it out in October for the month of Halloween, and I thought it makes much more sense to bring it out today because this is a book I want to cover. It is not a rug hooking book. It's a needlepoint and embroidery book. So lots of no, not made in USA. Estee Lauder could be. She was American, wasn't she? No, I'm thinking of. No, Estee Lauder's French. Who's the American? Gosh, who is she? Maybe it is Estee Lauder, who lived in New York. Maybe it is. I read the book War Paint, which is one of the greatest histories I've ever read about the relationship between Helena Rubinstein and Estee Lauder. It's one of these great histories that covers world history while it covers the relationship between these two battle axe women, like a to the death. There's another one, though. I know I'm missing one of the great American names. Help me out. But in any case, this book, I wanted to review it for a few reasons. There's a ton of crossover, not just for Halloween. It's a very dark book, right? And I have to admit, when I saw the cover on Amazon, this is a book by Gayla Partridge. I love this book. This is a fabulous book. I'm going to preface by saying I love this book. It's not for everybody. Just like Frida's not for everybody, right? But when I looked at the cover of this book, I thought, oh, look at the frame with the roses in it. It looks so cool. It looks like a little museum. All these small needlepoint pieces. Oh, look at the eye. That's cool. I like that. So I ordered it. And then I was a bit surprised when I got it because the content is very specific. So let's go through this together so you know the same thing that I now know looking at this book. I won't show all the patterns, of course, because if you're interested in the book, you should buy the book. I can put a link to it. I forgot to put a link to it. Stitchcraft, which didn't tell me a lot about like the content of this book because it's called Stitchcraft. So I thought, sounds good. The tagline, which is very small, says, an embroidery book of simple stitches and peculiar patterns. And no, not Elizabeth. It is Elizabeth Arden. It is. I keep saying Estee Lauder. Of course it's Elizabeth Arden. That's who I'm thinking of. This could be Elizabeth Arden likewise, right? Because it's Estee Lauder, who's from France, and it's Helena Rubinstein, who's more continental, right? Of course it's Estee Lauder. Thank you. The E's, 2 E's got me. That's all it takes. So let's look at some of these designs. I'm gonna say they are a bit macabre. Not all of them, but most of them have the feel. They're a little bit macabre. They are right on target if you're thinking about Frida and her medical illustrations. If you like Day of the Dead, that kind of imagery, this is your book. This is the book you've been waiting for. It's a very high-end book. It's a very big book. There are, how many pages in here? Pages don't go to the end, but I'm going to say like 200 plus, lots of patterns. Let's look at some of them. I don't want to show you big montages because I don't want to spoil it. So very, very different. So stuff like this, I just love. I hope you love too. Great inspiration ideas here, right? This is kind of like fusion, very Mexican feel, right? We have this sort of milagro heart on top. Let me bring in focus. It's a bit of a tree of life motif, right? Blazing heart, heart on fire, milagro. Day of the Dead imagery in the center, cactuses. Has a real Frida feel, doesn't it? By the way, the patterns to all the patterns for this book are in the back of the book. Very well drawn, but really beautiful. Has a textile feel, has a Mexican feel. Even the little pumpkin in there is fantastic. Lots of beautiful symbolic imagery. If you are a person who likes to tap into, borrow the recipes from an uncle. Did she really, Dave? Estee Lauder borrowed the recipes from an uncle? Did she? Interesting. I love the history of makeup. It's just one of these great areas filled with such eccentric characters. If you are a person who you're interested in like sort of self-help, spiritual stuff, new age conversations and thought, that if you are this kind of a person that you are looking for your, for lack of a better word, mythology, to create channels to make your own storytelling happen, this is a great book for you. This is a great book because it's filled with symbolism from a lot of different cultures. And then I'm going to show you some more. I want to be careful about what I show because she shows so many things. But for example, there's a lot of this kind of thing that crosses over between a crazy quilt and like something, a sign in a butcher store, right? Like cutting up like rump and what, you see these with cows and stuff. She does a lot of this kind of things with animals, but beautiful, beautiful stitches, a slightly dark idea, slightly. It's obviously a very living little lamb, isn't it? It's a very quite lifelike lamb, but some of them are less so. If you do like needlepoint, this is just the book for you. It really is the most unique needlepoint book I've seen in, I'm not even going to say years, I'm going to say decades. So here comes something else. Now this reminds me of science class in high school. This might be less for you, but at the same time, again, I'm thinking about Frida, and I'm thinking about her illustrations and being interested in becoming a doctor and the type of art she later produced. This has real crossover value for me right now. And it depends on who you are and what your interests are. If you are interested in science, in nature, then this is interesting to you. Things like this too that are kind of in the middle. This snake that is showing you, she's showing you part of the snake's skin, but then she's showing you part of the insides of the snake, and in beautiful color details too. So it's a lot of this kind of thing. So you can see how I was confused by the title Stitchcraft, because it's a bit more specific in terms of content than most craft books are. I have to say, the more I look at it, the more interested I become. The imagery is fantastic. The colors are fantastic. Lisa says, I'm very intrigued by this book. Exactly, Lisa. When I first opened it, I said, oh, that's a lot of skin and guts. But then when I thought about it, I thought, well, that's life, isn't it? Number one, so don't be so close-minded to myself. And the more I looked at it, I thought, man, this is crossing over for me to a lot of things that I have like heretofore not been interested in, but maybe this is the day that, I open up to some new thoughts, new design ideas. Probably won't be doing anything like this for ribbon candy hooking anytime soon, just because it's still a bit of an uncomfortable match for me. But I am inspired by some of the ideas that are in here. This piece, Skinned Rabbit, again, it's like a cross between something living and something not living. Reminds me of that exhibit that was to date, well, not to date now because Van Gogh has overtaken it, in terms of numbers and sales and popularity. Before the Van Gogh exhibit, do you remember the exhibit called The Human Body? It traveled for ages. It was an international exhibit, and it featured real cadavers that were, this is a weird subject, I know, it's not for everybody, cadavers that were on display that showed, some of them showed, it was science for the layman, right? It showed layers of tissue, muscles, different bodies showed different things. I did not go. I did not think it was for me. I should have gone, right? That's like a closed-minded approach. But I didn't go just because I had been to this kind of medical museum in London, and it was definitely not for me. And then I was stupid enough to go to another medical museum in Philadelphia. I forget the name of it. If you know the name of it, tell me because it's going to drive me crazy. When I was doing my touring, in the touring days, and I had been to the Philadelphia Museum of Art 120 times and done the Rocky Steps, and as soon as I dropped my group for the Smithsonian off there, and the docent had them, I thought, let me go to this medical museum that's not that far away. So I ran over to this museum, and it was absolutely extraordinary. I would go again now, but it's a little bit like this book for me that I didn't quite know, even having had the experience in London. And they showed some things in jars in that museum. It was 2 floors in this beautiful grand old building. And in the center of it, because the top was almost like it was just an arcade kind of a top on it open, I was upstairs and I was looking into these jars, and I was just like, whew, I was hungry, it was hot, it was just not good. The docent that worked there came up to me and said, "Are you okay?" from the bottom of the stairs. And my hand was on the rail, and I literally started to faint and fall down the stairs like this with my arm, like I got my recent injury the same way. I was not super okay. You know, it was a lot. So sometimes this stuff, maybe it's just me. I'm maybe a bit uptight, Yankee, old time, old school, but some of it gets to me. This book doesn't go nearly as far as the human body exhibit, but it certainly touches on it. Yeah, Kira, it was. The human body was a traveling exhibit, and for all I know, it might still be out there. It tackled subjects that are general interest to a lot of people. A lot of people are interested in their bodies. I mean, I have known people to stay awake during operations on their own bodies. That seems to me very Stephen King, but everybody's different, right? Everybody's interest and curiosity lies in different places. This could be a great design for a dentist, right? It's not all, there's much more beautiful stuff than the body stuff. So let me show you some of that in case you are, now this is very human body exhibit, this one, right? I mean, all those muscles. It is quite beautiful as a design, right? It is truly quite beautiful, even in context. Oh, now this is quite beautiful. What do you call those heads? These heads that people used to put up in doctor shops. It must begin with P-H-R-E-N, friend something, right? Didn't they have a word for this? And they would put them up in a shop, and it was one of these sort of quack things, or at least the Mutter Museum. Thank you, Kirsten. That's exactly what it was. It's a rough one. Maybe we'll go together. I could handle it now knowing... I don't know if I could handle it, to be honest. I was going to say I'd need to have a full stomach this time, but if I had a full stomach, I think it might have gone in a different direction. But what are these? Is this? I want to say phrenology, but you know, these heads used to be in doctor stores all the time to show people, what the different parts of the mind meant. So, with a lack of better medicine and knowledge about the human body at that time, you know, if you had a low brow, people would say there was no room for your brain, so that you were a ding dong. And there were different parts of your brain that they thought physically were associated with different temperaments. So that was all interesting. And this design really plays with that, but with more of a crazy quilt thing. We've got branches of coral and all kinds of sprays of flowers. It's an interesting crossover. And that's the point I want to make with this book. It is an interesting crossover. So if any of the things that I'm mentioning have appealed to you, whether it's Halloween month or not, this is a fantastic book to look at for inspiration, color juxtaposition, maybe phrenology, maybe. But let me show you a couple that are different. There's lots more body parts. Here are some beautiful lungs that are filled with flowers. I got to show you. I mean, it is quite beautiful, isn't it, as a design? And quite meaningful, too. See, this would make me sad because my dad died of lung cancer. But for someone else, it could be really meaningful. It could be something quite beautiful. There's actually lots of lung illustrations. There are some beautiful heart illustrations, like all the valves with butterflies and things like that. Ooh, trees growing out of the valves, like roots. This is very Frida, showing the heart with like trees and ferns and plants growing out of it, but also instead of like arteries and stuff inside the heart, they're showing the roots to trees, right? That's an interesting idea. Very realistic heart, of course. It wouldn't work. Lots of hearts. I think we're into a chapter on hearts and then getting into eyes. And that's interesting too. She gives some history in this book, and she shows things like the one that I used for our thumbnail, which I think was this one. Again, a big crossover with Day of the Dead. Beautiful idea, right? I did something like this with my Frida just because I wasn't good enough to hook her face. I did the skeleton. But really good idea. Nice piece of storytelling inside the skirt, right? That is a fantastic idea. Lots of crazy quilt action going on with that too. Think about it. think about the use of that. It could be a great design device. She's got a lot of skeletons with skirts. And then stuff like this, which again is based on a very familiar illustration, right? We're crossing over to kind of Ouija board stuff, mysticism, the all-seeing eye, right? We're getting a bit cross-cultured now because this is more of an Indian, the third eye or all-seeing eye. That's more of like an Eastern or Indian motif. But crossing over into all different kinds of culture. And this too, this has got to be called palmistry, right? This kind of thing. That was so interesting. I saw it at Inner Harbor in Baltimore. The book, Susie, or the Human Bodies exhibit. You saw this book? I had never seen this before, and I do go to bookstores a lot because we got a lot of Barnes and Nobles near us. Oh, now this is another nice play, right, with the hand, and it's got like the gravestone style skull, right? Not a realistic skull, but the gravestone style. But then look at the tips of the fingers. It makes me wonder why they chose those specific flowers. And it's almost like reading the lines of the palm, isn't it? This book really crosses over from science to sort of, I don't want to say mythology, but and I don't want to say fantasy, but the mystical. It crosses from the science angle to the mystical angle. I hope that's a safe way of saying that without being patronizing. There are some other ones that are very unexpected, and more beauties like this, real crossovers, showing the muscle and the tissue inside the head, but then inside the head is dreaming of this beautiful, almost Asian type landscape that looks like Mount Fuji. So there's a lot to be said for this book, I have to say. She's got an extraordinary amount of patterns that you might be interested in. And she's got them drawn out in the back, right? So if you're just doing them for your home and you buy this book, you have these patterns. Like this is like the tattooed man. I hadn't seen this one yet. Like Ray Bradbury's story, The Tattooed Man, but with what looks like a carp. I mean, that is really, they're so striking. There's one thing you can say about this book, whether it's your taste or not, they are so well done. And they are so striking. And then she gets into, for example, plants, right? And that backs it up a little bit too. It brings you back to like the sort of textbook illustration. It makes me think about Frida again. But, you know, knowing that this book is that niche, right? Knowing that it falls into a very specific niche. If this is something that inspires you, makes you think, makes you interested, then this is going to be a great book for you. It's not a lot. I'll put the link to it as soon as I end this video. But it's on Amazon. It was under $20. And for this many patterns and this many, you know, picture, I mean, it's just solid pictures, chock-a-block pictures. It really is it's a good book. It's just, I was surprised. It caught me by surprise. But once I got into the groove, because I thought, oh God, I got to return this. This is like, there's a lot of hearts in here. Not my kind of hearts. But the more I thought about it and the more I flipped through it, I thought there is a lot in here. There's a lot of inspiration. So I got more and more into it. I'm slowly getting there. But a lot of crossover for rug hooking, right? Just beautiful, beautiful imagery. Maybe it's better to show like that first and then say, guess what it is? It's your tooth. You know, it's maybe less jarring that way. But anyway, very different episode. I was going to do that for October, but I'm glad I did it now because it really fits in with Frida. I hope that you're on for tonight. It's a big group tonight, but I don't put anybody on the spot. You know that. And it's going to be a great informational session. And I will plan a second one for the people who want to jump on and can't do tonight, or people who are finding out they have a conflict for tonight, because that's life, isn't it? All kinds of things crop up. So I will come up with another date for next week. You know, it's a crazy weekend for me, being at the Wethersfield Fair on Saturday with Ribbon Candy Hooking, and then on Sunday to be teaching in Madison the Sugar Skulls. So I will come up with a second date for Frida next week if that works better for you. And you know, when you're signed up for these classes, you can log on for either or both, or you can just watch the recorded classes later, the 2-hour classes later. You will be sent them. So not everybody is live. Not everybody wants to be live. So these are all good options for you. But I'm excited for the class too, Kirsten. It took so much to get streamlined for this class because she's really, it's a lot. And she's all over the place in a lot of ways. We got like some hot mess activity going on looking at Frida's stuff. But at the end of the day, I feel like I've got a really tight logical sort of chronology to our class tonight. And most importantly, I think, the most exciting exercises for you to work on your own compositions, things to think about, things to start sketching. And there are exercises that I will never be able to use for another class because they're so specific to Frida's ideas, not necessarily her, but to her work. So specific that I will never be able to reuse them. So I hope that I will see you tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's not too late to sign up. As long as I have time to send you the email with the document, you are good. In any case, have a great afternoon, everybody. Tomorrow is Thursday. I think I'm going to have to take tomorrow off. I'm sorry. I normally do Zoom. I'm getting a little strung out and worried about pacing leading up to the weekend, and so much busyness. And I did get a couple new orders, so I want to get going on those too. But I think I probably won't Zoom tomorrow, and I love to, but I will catch up with you next week when it's a little less suffocating, you know. And of course, no cocktail night on Friday because it's Jocelyn's birthday. She got one ear pierced yesterday. It really fits crazy. We went to the tattoo parlor and she got one pierced, and she got a little sleeper in there, but it hurt more than she thought. So she was not up for getting the second one. So she's a bit of a maybe pirate today. She's got one, and she's very proud of the one. She's doing the kind of weird, you know, the Halloween costume, half man, half woman, and staying like in profile because she wants everybody to see the one. So maybe she'll get a second one, but I didn't want to push her. I said, it's your little body. It's your life. You know, if you don't want anything more done, then one earring is great. That will be your amazing statement, right? We'll turn it into something unique. We'll see what happens. She'll probably get the second one in a month or something. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Oh, the exhibit, Susie. You went and saw the human body. I wonder if it's still out. I'm going to have to check now. I'm curious. Because to see, being an artist really is to see the beauty in everything, right? Even things that are a bit challenging for you. You have an emotional reaction when you see a human body cut up and opened up because you're a human, right? But I guess being a real artist is being subjective and getting that distance between you and being able to see things as beautiful, as patterns and as colors that not everybody can see. I don't qualify as that class of artist with a capital A, and I think that is one of my great falling points. But I would maybe be curious to see that exhibit, something to think about, something to chat about on our page. I will see you all hopefully before next week, but otherwise I will be back with you on Monday for coffee time, and I will start with storybook cottages and rug hooking. Have a great few days. Thanks, Lisa, and I will see you soon.